Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're joining us from. Thank you very much for joining this Waste Management and Circularity Iris Plus Impact Team launch webinar. We're very excited that this day has finally come after many months of work, and we're very, very happy to share what is launching with you today. So my name is Panagiotou Palfousia. I'm the director for Iris Plus. I'm at the GIN and lead impact standards strategist and developer. I'm delighted that you're all here. And what we hope to do in this event is to inform you about the new Iris Plus impact theme on waste management and circularity, and highlight the value of those resources and how they equip investors with standardized metrics, indicators, evidence, and other resources that you all need to make capital more effective in creating positive impact. So this is our agenda for today. Actually, the whole presentation, 1 hour, is really focused on sharing with you our excitement about the Iris Plus Waste Management Circularity Impact theme, and trying to show you just a little bit what we can within 1 hour of what these resources can do for your practice and for advancing sustainable waste management circularity. So we will really focus on that. There might be a Q&A at the end, depending. I can't really promise. We'll see how we'll do with time. But irrespectively, please share your questions and reach out to us. We will be sure to respond individually if we're not able to get to every question. The session will be a mix between presentation, panel discussion, and if we're able to get to that, a Q&A. But now I want to go right ahead and pass over to my panelists, which I'm so excited to have with me joining, and to ask them to introduce yourselves. Maybe Mallory, I will ask for you to start.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Panagiotou. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mallory St. Clair. I am Andy's impact manager, and Andy is the Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs, which is a program of the Aspen Institute. We are headquartered in DC, but we have presence in 8 chapters across the world. And we're excited to work with Jen on this through a grant via the IKEA Foundation. So thank you for having me, and welcome.
Marvin?
Yes, thank you for having me as well. So Marvin, I'm leading the finance program at Circular Economy. So we are a think tank based in Amsterdam, best known for the Circularity Gap Report. So really assessing how circular the world is and how much virgin resources we use and how much waste we actually create. So we were very thankful that we were able to contribute to the development of this framework by the GIN. Thank you.
Shruti and Ellen.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Shruti Goel. I'm the co-CEO for Upaya Social Ventures. We are headquartered in US, but we work extensively in India over 14 years. Very excited about the work that the circularity metric has come up with, and to this event today. Thank you. Ellen?
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Ellen Martin. I'm Chief Impact Officer for Circulate Capital. Circulate is an impact investment firm based in Singapore. We invest in circular economy solutions in emerging markets in South and Southeast Asia and in Latin America and the Caribbean. Very excited to be here and to participate in this process. Back to you, Panagiotou.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to take just a little brief moment to discuss Iris Plus. Hopefully, most of the attendees know of Iris Plus, so I won't spend a lot of time. We've got a really busy schedule ahead. But I do want to say that Iris Plus is a set of resources, guidelines, tools that really try to support impact investors to identify what information they need, to interpret that information, and to use that to further enhance, accelerate, understand the impact their investees and their investment activities is having. So Iris Plus is a public good. It's available to anybody. And really, we hope that with that resource, investors are able to manage their impact methodically and also more effectively with regards to accelerating those positive impacts for people and planet. You see here some key resources of Iris Plus. We will be going into some of these with much more detail in this session, but not all. Thematic taxonomy and core metric sets is what I would like to just focus a little bit more on and highlight what those resources are about. Thematic taxonomy is a classification system that we hope investors will be able to utilize to support them in going from a very broad ambition around impact, which we set out in impact categories, to define and narrow that into impact themes and impact lenses that we have in Iris Plus. And then within that, we're also nesting strategic goals, where we invite investors to really crystallize what is the strategic goal, what is the ambition, what is the vision of the world that you're trying to support and contribute towards. And the core metric sets is a resource that sits right next to the thematic taxonomy and takes that even deeper and more concretely into measurement and management. So strategic goals are then unpacked into more actionable, more nuanced, more specific and measurable outcomes that single investments are then able to move. And in that, we have short lists of indicators and metrics that directly support you, investors, and your investees to really understand impact performance versus those specific outcomes. And of course, there's the catalog of metrics, mapping to sustainable development goals, and alignments. All of these are resources within the core metric sets and thematic taxonomy. So let's move straight into waste management and circularity, which we'll be spending the rest of this time trying to unpeel a little bit. And even though we just have a brief time, I want to really use this time to give you a little bit of an overview of what is the breadth of the resources that we're launching today. So we started working on waste management circularity, the Iris Plus team, in 2024, scoping. And then towards the end of 2024 and 2025, we onboarded Circular Economy. Marvin's here with us in the panel today as technical partner supporting us in this work. And from Q1 2025 right through to November, we worked very closely together with a working group of 28 participants. We have 2 working group members as well in our panel today that we will discuss more with, to really help us bring alongside the technical perspective, practitioner perspective, for what really works on the ground in terms of generating impact. What is realistic, what is feasible, and how does impact really get generated and enhanced? And we also developed our content into a draft document for the core metric sets that was shared broadly. We invited everybody and anyone who wanted to really provide feedback over a 2-month period. And we got a lot of feedback, I guess, from some of you also in the call today. Thank you very much. That was really excellent feedback. And we're really able to build on that, to form what we're launching today, the set of resources. And none of this would have also been possible without the generous support of the IKEA Foundation and the Aspen Network for Development Entrepreneurs. Mallory, thanks very much for all your partnership here. And I know you have been working together with entrepreneurs and investors in waste and circularity for quite some time to help improve access to finance and unlock positive impact. What was your motivation when you set out to support our work with developing and now launching today this Iris Plus impact theme?
Yeah, thank you. So this Iris Plus impact theme on waste and circularity is kind of part of a larger project that Andy is implementing with support from IKEA, which is around trying to crowd in investment and support for waste and circularity enterprises in certain geographies, specifically India and Kenya. And if anybody here on the call has worked with IKEA before, you guys know that they like evaluation, they're very data focused. And so as part of that overall project, supporting impact measurement and management best practices and promoting those was like a real interest and a critical component. Since Andy is a membership network, we always try and promote best practices among our members. And obviously one of those best practices is impact measurement and management. And Iris Plus is one of the resources that we recommend our members use because of quality and because of its alignment. So for me personally, this was a really exciting opportunity to get involved with actually developing the theme. And then, of course, we picked the gin because Iris Plus is kind of like the standard. It's like one of those key benchmarks that is out there. Um, so at being able to add to the Iris Plus catalog through this is a really big, like kind of Jyota said, kind of public good. So thank you for the opportunity for us to be involved here.
Thank you, Mallory. And here we are today on the 16th of December, launching this set of resources. And you see here in the background the impact theme description. And you'll notice that it's not just waste, it's not just circularity, it's waste management and circularity. Marvin, you've been the technical partner for this work. Thank you for all the critical inputs you provided and the team provided. Perhaps the most important input, I think, that you really pressed on, and I'm glad you did from day one, was how you can't really look at waste separately from upstream activities and waste prevention. And as a result, the Iris Plus resources launching today, and you see this also in the impact theme descriptions, waste circularity are two sides of one coin, really capture both aspects. Why was that so important for you? Why is it so important to look at those topics in tandem together?
Yes, thanks, Panagiota. So, I mean, I think I can summarize it in one sentence, and that is the best waste is never created. So real waste management starts much earlier and then just at the very end. And that's, of course, what the circular economy concept is basically pushing for. And it's not just about like integrating this concept itself here. It's really more about integrating also this thinking of the entire lifetime of a certain product or anything really that becomes waste. So we are very glad that actually the theme is now also considering that. We see that the strategic goals also are able to cover the entire lifetime and really the life cycle of products. We see that the design phase at the very beginning, where you can already avoid creation of waste at the very end, is integrated. We see a strategic goal on the optimization of the use phase. And then, of course, still, which often is considered as the actual waste management, is kind of the development of infrastructure for recovery, the sorting, collection, and actual recycling. And all that, of course, needs to happen in a just way. So the role of people is also crucial. And we're very happy that we were able to really cover this entire life cycle in this new framework.
Thanks very much. Ellen, Shruti, I don't know if you want to actually also jump in here. How was it from your perspective, shifting from a waste management perspective to one that is actually much more broader and captures that life cycle? What was that necessary, and is that supportive from your perspective as investors?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in. Absolutely. I mean, this is certainly aligned with our own theory of change and how we demonstrate our impact. Part of our model is really to prepare investments to scale to meet the global demand for recycled materials and make sure that the infrastructure exists to actually move waste through a circular life cycle and supply chain. So by doing just waste management and not circularity, we would have definitely missed out. So I'm delighted that we've gotten there.
Yeah, and
And
same, sorry, same
go
for
ahead,
us
Shruti.
as investors. I think this aligns with not just material circularity that we are looking at, but also looking at how that it's people centered and how that is folded in, not as a byproduct or a follow-on discussion, but integrated. So that's something we feel that it's very aligned to both profit and purpose.
Exactly. Thank you. And we'll go into some detail around the strategic goals and specific highlighting some we don't have the time to look at all the indicators and metrics, but we'll showcase some. On this slide, what you see, it's trying to kind of cram in everything that's launching today on Iris Plus. For example, 4 strategic goals, including narrative overviews around the 5 dimensions of impact, initially launched by the Impact Management Project, now further developed by Impact Frontiers, 15 associated actionable measurable outcomes, 57 evidences. For 4 of those outcomes, we have developed core metric sets with a short list of indicators and metrics. 31 new RS Plus metrics we have introduced are launching today on the platform, on the website, each with 14 to 34 metadata tags to support really with implementation, including with 65 existing RS Plus metrics, we have developed 57 RS Plus indicators. And next to that, we're pointing to 19 curated resources for further deep dives in particular topics. We have sourced those metrics and indicators, really looking through all the available scientific technical resources out there. We're referencing 41 frameworks and standards, introducing onto IRIS Plus a number of glossary terms. Six sustainable development goals are directly aligned, 8 indirectly aligned to the strategic goals. We have 25 sustainable development targets aligned at the metric level. And of course, this impact team has a lot of cross-thematic tags, because waste management circularity is also about pollution prevention, is very much about natural resource conservation, about climate change mitigation, marine resource conservation, quality jobs, healthcare, and other topics that are relevant to people and planet. So a lot of resources, we will be going into just some of those today. Ellen and Shruti, I would like to ask you, just reflecting on your experience, you were part of the working group. And thank you so much. You stuck with us over so many months, a lot of work. You provided your really so important inputs from a practitioner perspective and an expert investor perspective on what is feasible, what works on the ground, what is missing, what do we need how do we need to develop this set of resources. And you were instrumental in terms of the resources that are launching here today. How do you think these resources should be leveraged? What would you like to see the ecosystem do with these resources now that they're there, available, public?
Well, I have to say that this is a real pleasure for me because I've participated in many of those working groups that you mentioned. None of them are quite as central to the work that I do on the day-to-day than this particular one. When we started Circulate Capital in 2018, 2019, there were no standard metrics that existed really for what we were trying to do. And so I had to pull in my friends in the research world to come up with our first impact framework. And I think this framework is what I wish that I had when we first started. So I hope that others will certainly use it in the same way. I think we find that our investors, our LPs, also ask, right, for alignment with IRIS Plus, and this allows us to do that much more cleanly and with a shared language that we can communicate more broadly.
Absolutely. And I mean, Ellen, you've put it so well. For us as well, this is one of the most comprehensive set that we've seen. We've been tracking as Upaya, we fight poverty with dignified jobs. We have been doing quite intensive inquiry into what dignified work looks like. But how does it cross its paths when it's talking about circular business models? What do you talk about? How do you measure? How do you help companies measure environmental outcomes as well as social outcomes in a way that it's interoperable, that they are able to share the language with their follow-on investors or with the ecosystem? So this is a very nice, neat way to come for everyone to converge. So that power we see emerge from here. And I do hope that as investor community, when we start using this, it helps impact not being like a compliance check or an add-on activity, but helps us make decisions and pass on that why we made those decisions to our peer investors. And at a broader level, I really hope that it opens up capital flows because of its it enabling the interoperability there. So that's what I feel.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. And I think the magic word there is interoperability, also shared language, and in our minds as we develop these resources over so many months with so many inputs and really in partnership with the ecosystem, trying to make more. Trying to enable investors and their investees to make more informed decisions, to enable accelerated outcomes and enhanced outcomes. So that effectiveness is really at the core of our mind. And we truly believe that building on existing technical resources, enhancing those, framing those, making those more accessible, more easily accessible, more broadly accessible to impact investors is a core tenet of Iris Plus. It's really the challenge we've taken on. So the core metric sets in particular that we will discuss really shortly is a resource that is supported by existing scientific, technical, as well as practitioner knowledge. And the aim is to be able to measure and manage performance against actionable outcomes that can drive transformational change and systemic change when it comes to managing resources and waste. Mallory, I wonder, from your perspective, working closely with investors, investees, asset owners, is standardization a topic that is relevant for your network? What are the tangible benefits from really pushing standardization and harmonization of existing resources?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's honestly a question I get all the time, and I hear this from not only investors, but like other people such as entrepreneur support organizations, social enterprises. People do want standardization that is accessible and somewhat flexible so that they can customize to their own context if they need to adjust one or two things. And then the standardization across multiple frameworks is really important because people are kind of already using some frameworks. Maybe they're familiar with like the GRI or like the greenhouse gas protocol. So aligning with other existing frameworks helps to ease uptake and adoption overall. And then it's really important for investors because you want something standardized so that you can compare your portfolio, you can compare your potential investments. And from the investee perspective, if you have something that's standardized, one, it's easily accessible. It can help reduce, it helps reduce the time that you have. You don't have to create your own metric set like Ellen had to do, basically from scratch. And then additionally, I always recommend that people use something like Iris Plus because it has been developed in a working group like this. It is validated. There are experts that have input into it and it's been tested. So for all of these reasons, I do see a lot of demand for standardization, and there are so many benefits.
Let's change gears a little bit. So in the remaining time, what I would like to do is to give you all a bit of an insight around some of the core metric sets, and in particularly use those to showcase the strategic goals that are launching today on Iris Plus, and also just some of the indicators and metrics that are launching to support you with impact measurement and management, with investment decision making, and also key communications efforts. So let's start with the strategic goal on minimized waste through circular design principles for products and manufacturing. And you see the short description of this strategic goal here. In many ways, I think this is maybe the most ambitious of the 4 strategic goals that are launching today on Iris Plus. It invites you to envision a world where the minimization of waste happens right at the product design and the manufacturing level. So let's use as few virgin resources as possible in production. Let's use as much secondary materials as possible. And there are a few outcomes that are associated with the strategic goal that you see here. And the one that's highlighted is the anchor outcome for the core metric set, increasing durability, repairability, and recyclability of products. And you see there are two outcome indicators for this outcome: actual lifetime indicator and percentage of recyclable materials in product composition. Essentially, what are we saying? If your intention is to shift this outcome to increase durability, repairability, and recyclability of products, these two indicators should really feature high on your priority in terms of being able to get the information you need for effective decision making and communication. Marvin, circular economy has helped to, I think, even build some of these indicators from the ground up, which is truly stunning. Could you help us understand what does the actual lifetime indicator actually measure? What is the product actual lifetime that an investor is required then to actually quantify together with an investment level lifetime estimate to calculate the actual lifetime indicator? And maybe just before I pass that to you, if that sounds complex, please know that there is a lot of calculation guidelines, a lot of metric usage guidance on the website that will really take you by the hands and just explain all what's behind this jargon. Marvin.
Yes, thank you. And maybe also, you just said that we also co-designed it. I think it's important there, and Mallory also mentioned it, we're really building also on other frameworks, so that it is not really just something new that we're putting out there. This is something that we also at least get inspired, for example, by the green by the Global Circularity Protocol, by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, has been used in other frameworks. So the idea actually of looking at the lifetime of a certain product, for example, is not new. But yeah, it can be a bit overwhelming at first. So let me just try to explain a bit what we actually mean by that. So what is the lifetime? The lifetime of a certain product, and that can be, for example, an electronics product. It can be your smartphone. It can be, you maybe your clothes, textiles, your furniture, maybe the couch that is at home. Can be anything really. And the lifetime is basically the usable lifetime of this product before it's thrown away, it actually becomes waste. And it is a quite meaningful indicator to determine how well this product basically performs, to measure the lifetime. So how do you actually do that, and how do we approach this with this new GIN framework? It is, of course, first that you really have to describe and understand what kind of product we are actually talking about. Making it also comparable. It's also very important, of course, for investors. If you want to compare certain portfolios, you need to have a certain comparability. So if you take, for example, a smartphone that is a specific product, then you really want to calculate the product's actual lifetime. And with that, we mean that's the average number of years, ideally, that the product basically remains in use. I mean, with your smartphones, maybe by now it's usually just 2 years, for example. Then you get a new phone, and we want to compare the actual average number of years to the specific investment case. Maybe it's a more modular phone that is more easily repaired, where you can very easily replace the battery, or you can replace the screen and so on. And that is basically the innovative investment opportunity. Then you basically, as a company, you need to provide that data, and really real world data. That can be that you have specific warranty claims, that your new modular cell phone, smartphone, for example, is much longer in the market, that you have service records. It can be also based on customer service. It's all explained in the framework, but that you compare the specific lifetime of the product, the new solution basically that is offered, to the average number of years that the average smartphone basically has. And there's also databases that you can relate that on. And what we then really get to see in the end is, or we basically put it into perspective, we want to identify the industry's average lifetime and compare it to the specific solution's lifetime. And through that, we really get basically a ratio that shows us, okay, this new solution is positive, it does well in preventing waste in the end by having a more and longer actual lifetime than the industry average, and therefore it is positive for this. Was it clear, Panagiote?
Perfect. Thank you. And there are many more indicators and metrics, for example, some that focus specifically on stakeholders and answer who is experiencing the outcome, others that focus on how much change is occurring, and these focus more on the trend and the trajectory, and yet others that focus on how is actually change happening and more trying to address what are the mechanisms of the change. As preface, we will not be going on everything and in great detail, so just very selective today, but we will be holding deep dives over 2026, and you're welcome, of course, to look, and we hope you will look at the resources that are launching today, where everything is publicly available. But now let's go on to another strategic goal, which is optimized infrastructure for capturing, recycling, and disposing waste. Now, this strategic goal is all about valorizing the waste stream and actually enabling waste to re-enter supply chains as secondary material. And the outcome that is the anchor outcome for this core metric set you see here in bold, improving capability of recycling infrastructure. Now, Ellen, I think this is probably very close to home with the outcomes that Circulate Capital tries to impact with its investment program. How can these two outcome indicators that we have selected here for this core metric set, and it's just two of a number of indicators, but they're the two outcome indicators, how can they help investors understand their impact performance, accelerate, and communicate effectively?
Yeah, these are really important and wonderful. And I think also importantly from a investment perspective, very closely linked to just the operations of the types of solutions we'd be investing in. So what, just to use a couple of examples, when we're in a space where a recycler is taking in waste, right, and then trying to use it as feedstock, input into a process and produce a product with it. That flow is not as efficient as the linear economy. So you have a yield and a loss. And indeed, what we try to do with our investment and then over the course of the investment is to maximize the amount of yield that you can get and minimize the loss, right? So we're always looking at the mass of materials going in, what's the yield and loss through the process, and then ultimately what is the material that can then be sold at market. And these metrics are keenly tied to all of that measurement for us from an impact management perspective, but it also helps us compare different investments. So if we have, let's say, an investment in India that is recycling flexible films, like a carry bag, for example, and their yield, because they have a vertically integrated model and they've been working at this for many years, is something close to 85 or 90%. That tells us something very different than when we invest in a similar business in Indonesia, where the infrastructure is not as good or mature, let's say, and the business itself is not vertically integrated. Their yield can be just 60%. And they have a 40% loss. And so then the impact that we're able to create with these two different models is actually quite different. And it leads us to different conversations and portfolio management approaches.
And you mentioned some examples there that were quite geographically specific. Could I just put that to the panel? These indicators and metrics that we have discussed so far, do you see a geographical element to them, or are they broadly applicable and relevant? In other words, should investors think of them, okay, if I am active in a specific geography, mass of input material converted into usable recycled output, or actual lifetime indicator, yes, that's useful in that geography, but not in another. Is that how it works, or are these indicators broad?
No, I mean, from my opinion, we have invested in something like 10 or 12 different geographies around the world, some emerging markets, some developed markets. The indicators themselves are absolutely applicable in every case. I would just say that maybe the expectations for what a single investment can achieve or what the baseline is even is just going to be different depending on the market context. The indicator itself, though, should hold.
That's great. That's great to hear, especially as we were going for that as well in developing this content, that it's really broadly helpful. Marvin, from a technical perspective, would you see it the same, or do you see a geographical nuance with regards to how these indicators and metrics are implemented?
I think it's always important to look at the local context, because especially also when you look more at the social elements and the implications it can have on informal labor and so on, it's important to consider it. But in general, I think that the indicators as they have been designed for this framework, they are largely globally applicable, because they also focus very much, of course, on the material element of it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Ellen, just to highlight again the point you made, the indicator, the metric has broad relevance. The baseline, the context matters very much, and that's where then the specific data and the assessment is change happening quickly enough. What versus my expectations? What should those expectations be? Comes in, and that part is more nuanced. But the metrics and indicators, that language should be shared on a technical level, and it is. Then I want to just jump to our next strategic goal. We covered circular design principles in the product design and manufacturing stage very briefly. There's a lot more context, but that was the first strategic goal we discussed with the actual lifetime indicator. Then we just covered, and Ellen talked us through some of the indicators, outcome indicators for optimized infrastructure for capturing, recycling, and disposing of waste. But yet, if we are really optimizing product design and manufacturing from a circularity perspective, and are also optimizing the systems for handling waste streams, we're still quite likely to overburden and degrade our natural systems. What is further needed? That is captured in this strategic goal, which is to optimize resource use through business models that maximize utility and lifetime extension of products that are in circulation. In other words, one product has been developed, has been produced, material has been expended, and energy has been expected to bring that into circulation. Let's make the best use of it. Let's increase its utility, and let's use it for as long as possible. And that's the focus of this strategic goal. And the anchor outcome for this strategic goal you see here in bold: improving product lifetime extension services. Now, for this strategic goal, I would like to take the opportunity to look at another part of the IRIS Plus core metric set structure, which is how is change happening. So this set of metrics and indicators have been developed really with a focus to get to the mechanisms of change. How is change happening? And for example, very practically, in the case of improving product lifetime extension services and their effectiveness, capacity building we have identified as something that is particularly important, and what we try to capture with the indicator: number of employees, organizations trained in circular business models, or product lifetime extension practices. Shruti, I would love to know your perspective on how important capacity building is, both from the perspective of enhancing and improving the ability of employees and organizations to really apply circularity principles for extending lifetime and enhancing the utility of products, but also on the more social element.
Yeah, thanks for this. I think it kind of convenes. So capacity building and training, we cannot keep it separate from the innovations in product, in innovations in production or design. How it We see it at Upaya, we see it as an opportunity to upskill, to provide alternate as new areas of job creation, of new areas of skilling for workers to upskill and include themselves into streams, into value chains which never existed. For example, reverse logistics or some, I mean, these are skill sets or areas which are emerging and for workers to participate in. The other area is the mindset shift from both investors and the entrepreneurs to see that it is not a capex, it's not a capital expenditure. So only the circularity cannot be scaled only by investing in capital expenditures. You need to invest in capacity building, you need to spend on capacity building, because the assets depreciate but capacities multiply. The more the same work a person is doing over here, the experience makes it flawless, makes it very efficient as a system. So then how do you really validate this investment, this expenditure into capacity building and skilling is not really a mainstream right now. I think sometimes investors, we are looking at TA grants, we are looking at various ways of incentivizing our companies to train their workers. But how do you? I think this kind of metric helps you to measure that how uh, skilling, capacity building is able to convene into an outcome of improving the product lifetime extension services, and which in turn uh, adds to the overall circularity. So I think that's how I would see it. And for example, I'm also seeing this at Upaya. For example, we work in two value chains in waste: plastics and textiles. Now plastics is a more evolved ecosystem. You have infrastructure in different countries at different level. No, but textile waste is a new theme. And how do you see the availability of infrastructure for plastics versus for textile? And how do you see the workers engage with this kind of work? Is new and is a new area for us, but we are seeing early results. We are seeing benefits of skilling, capacity building into new chemical sorting technologies, for example, versus a mechanical sorting technology. How does it uh, change incomes for the workers, as well as changes um, the way informal labor or workers are engaged into a more formal setup? So yeah, that's my kind of take on this.
Think, Shruti, that is so valuable. I love how you call out the marrying of capex, opex with mentality to really bring together what is essentially core elements of any business strategy with an impact mindset for improving outcomes for people and planet. Ellen, have you worked also, if you had examples you'd like to share or comments around the role of capacity building for really improving outcomes with regards to the lifetime extension for products and how much value we're able as citizens, as consumers, to extract from them?
Yeah, and I mean, I think I'll just build on what Shruti's already said. We also similarly work in the plastics, recycled plastics supply chain. And on the capacity building side, we have started to focus quite a bit on the supply chain of the formal recycler that we are investing in. Each one of those large aggregators, small aggregators, waste pickers are, at by working on training and upskilling and improving working conditions, health, safety, etc., you actually improve quality of material and improve livelihood opportunities as well. So we see it as a multiplier and a key component of really building a more robust and resilient supply chain, which in this transition between a linear and circular economy is very much needed. And I think this capacity building element is really important to pay attention to, even just as Marvin set up in the very beginning, the thematic approach of a just transition and how we think about that alongside of waste management and circularity is really key.
Hmm.
Yeah, and maybe
Marvin,
just you can be managing your waste perfectly and you can be entirely circular, but that unfortunately doesn't automatically mean that any workers are treated well.
That's right.
That's important to keep in mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Marvin, I wonder if you have any comments on the importance specifically around technology-enabled improvements and advancements when it comes to enhancing the utility of a product and extending its lifetime. How does that build into continuous training? Like, does it go fast so that becomes necessary, or in some instances, perhaps?
I mean, technology, of course, always can support these kind of developments, so it's very crucial. And we see that in the circular economy in general, of course, just the collaboration and connecting basically the different phases of the circular economy is absolutely crucial for it to work, and that also can help, of course, improve capacity building and all that. But I'm not sure I'm answering your question right now.
No, my reflection is just that when it comes to the technical elements of getting more utility, more users, having a single product serve more purposes and over a longer period of time, there is a technical awareness around that needs to be nourished and also maintained. I mean, for consumers as well, but also within the organization and service enterprises as well, in order for that to actually take place, even though the technical capacity may be there, if we don't know about it, and even if different ecosystem actors are not really able to develop it and implement it practically, then we won't see the benefits of that potential.
Yes, for sure. So, I mean, now I understand you better. So, maybe we can just also be very concrete. And I think that in our societies, a lot of knowledge on repairing has been lost, while probably my grandma was still able to kind of fix socks where there was a hole in it. Nowadays, I'm not sure if anybody really remembers how to do this because it's just cheaper to buy new socks. And this is, of course, the same for more complex goods and products. If you think about I don't know, electronics, it's often much cheaper just to buy a new I don't know, fan instead of fixing a fan. And it's the same for a bicycle, for example. And a lot of this kind of knowledge of really repairing activities and taking good care of goods has been lost. So we also have to invest in that more again and value that work.
Yes. Now you really make me blush because I still take my clothes to my mother and she fixes them for me.
Look, you're living the framework already, Panagata.
Yeah. No, I think the takeaway is really leveraging local knowledge wherever that is embedded, and also nurturing that and not letting that go, because that's also a very much a cultural waste potentially. Then last, but most certainly not least, the other strategic goal that is launching today is on just and equitable resource management and supply chain for all workers, so that we're really able to put in practice the transition in a way that works for people and planet. Upaya Social Ventures, Shruti, you mentioned is an investor that's focused on market-based solutions that create dignified jobs for sanitation workers and addresses stigma. And there's the insights you brought to the working group really helped shape this core metric set for this strategic goal. It is anchored here. You see the outcome for this core metric set is establishing fair treatment and respect for rights and health and safety for all workers. Now, this is a complex topic, and we have 5 outcome indicators. I think the largest number we've ever had for a core metric set on ARIS Plus, but it does. We do try with that to grapple with some of the different angles that are all important. The outcome indicators include access to personal protective equipment, worker participation in hazard identification practices, number of fatal and non-fatal occupational injuries, and types of employee training and transition programs offered. Shruti, how do you see the relevance of these ARIS Plus outcome indicators for measuring, managing, and accelerating impact for formal and informal workers? And what is the possibility for investors to really get to the data behind?
Right. So SG4, this matters because it really captures what dignity looks like in waste and sanitation work, especially for informal workers who face the highest risk and have the least protection. So that's where I feel that this is really important, and to weave into the theme. And the 5 outcome indicators together, they kind of move the commitment for investors from very abstract commitments to practical management questions like, do they have a PPE kit? How many injuries do we have? Were they tracked and reduced? Do we have the system? At our level, do our entrepreneurs have the system to track something like this, and also to relate it to their own business productivity, to their business outputs. And finally, like, are there training transition pathways that help the workers into safer, high value roles in terms of upskilling themselves and moving in terms of economic mobility. So that's where we see this very important pillar uh, for both formal and informal systems, and the transitions in between, when we are moving to circular. And just picking from your example, Benedetta, like my shoes, I still get them repaired from my cobbler, but in India, the cobblers come from a very hegemonic uh, social stratification. Like, how do you kind of then make sure that they are paid well, and is there then how does that repair industry survive, and is it good enough? But so that's on an informal setup. But on a formal setup, uh, how do we look at insurance? And that's something we are seeing in our portfolio companies, looking at partnerships for social protection, corporate social responsibility, very place-based partnerships coming in and trying to support communities of sanitation workers, uh, training around hazard identification, etc. So that's something, I think it's a continuous discussion and continuous knowledge sharing, which is we are seeing the impact of that in the stickiness of the workers with the companies, because a lot of in sanitation, a lot of workers are informal workers, and there's high attrition, there's high um, uh, I mean, the place of work really matters. So that's where we are seeing the linkages. In terms of your question on data availability, and how do, as investors, what is our expectation? I think first is, like, generally putting a metric around or asking the basic questions and keeping our expectations low on data availability, but consistency is key. So we started 14 years back. When we started, data availability was still very low, but now it is very proactive. The companies we are working with, and one of the programs with Andy that we worked on, an accelerator for circularity, we got proactively data because everybody is realizing that it helps them when they surface whatever piece of data they have. There's an ecosystem that is helping them to piece it together. Um, so I think that's where this would come in. For investors, again, we also need to be, I think, a bit away from our moral compass here and be more pragmatic. There could be good, bad, ugly results. The idea is to look at it as a journey. Okay, this is a point where one needs to start on probably health and safety. When we did a study with 60 decibels, health and safety came really low, and it got us into a panic button. And we were like, but now we know that that is an area that needs intervention. So I think everything will not be hunky dory. It won't be picture perfect. But that's the whole point, right? And then the last point I want to say is collaboration. Like Gin. That's why I think Gin and having this impact theme anchored at Gin makes me very, very optimistic about, like, there's a convening that we can bring it under an umbrella and kind of share uh, share the data that way. So that's where, yeah, that's what we feel.
Thanks. And I think you mentioned earlier the contextual element and Ellen as well yourself, the baseline element. How do you set expectations? I think this strategic goal and this core metric set as well provides a good example of that. The importance and the need and the expectation, at what level should that be set, that will differ from place to place, and how you're able to anchor your target for generating impact, that will also differ. So there is not one global anchor point. And I think on this social dimension for this core metric set, that is quite more evident. But what also gets me excited is here too, there is very much a global perspective to this core metric set, because supply chains are, for many industries, for many sectors, global. So if we're able to filter these questions and start asking for the data and setting some expectations where those make sense, that will have hopefully cascading effects linked also to productivity, as we discussed, and sustainability, but also for the impact, for really impacting people's lives today and now. So with that, I want to just finish off to thank everybody, especially the panelists, especially IKEA Foundation and the Aspen Network of Development Entrepreneurs for the support, for their contributions in this theme development process, and all of you for joining today. I really hope that you were able to, we weren't able to cover everything or most of the material, but hopefully we scratched the surface, and for you to deep dive further so you can explore more on the website. Everything is launching today and it's all public. And please reach out for any questions, for collaboration opportunities. We will be very excited to hear how you integrate these resources, how you work with these resources, and how we can work together more going forward. And with that, thanks everybody and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.